So you have come to learn more about close and mid-range playstyles. Great, let's get started with a few rules. Number 1. In most cases, if not all, you will have to use silencers. Obviously, using your weapons without them will mean that enemy will hear you shoot or see your blip on the minimap, and that will make your escape or fighting much harder. Number 2. When engaging enemies, always try to shoot the easiest target first. Most times it will be the enemy that is closest anyway. Number 3. Never engage more than 2 enemies. This is quite simple. With one clip from any weapon, most of the time you will be able to only take out 2 enemies anyway. Number 4. Try to reduce your cloaking and uncloaking times. If you play against only a squad of enemies, then they will hear much clearer where you are, if you uncloak and cloak again every second. Then again, if you are in big battles, then all explosions and gunfire will mask your cloaking sound. But still be very careful and plan ahead. Okay, so that's about those little rules you should try to follow at least. But now let's go over those little things in your equipment that could potentially make you last longer. Suit slot. I dedicated a whole video for this slot. But to remind you, I would recommend either ammo belt or grenade bandolier. Other items for this slot are less effective, but you can still use them if you choose so. Cloak. As I explained this in one of the series videos, you should go for Hunter. Stalker too if you choose so, but it will require a little bit different playstyle and approach. Utility. Definitely AP mines because medkits can be replaced by implant. Tool. As you will be fighting up close, I strongly recommend motion spotter. Grenade. Free choice here, but for the love of order, freedom or Vanu, do not pick decoy. And finally, secondary. Again, I have to refer to one of my in-depth videos. So default for TR and Vanu are the best ones you can have. For NC, stick with default, which is pretty good too. Also use silencers and lasers on these pistols. As for revolvers, they are okay option. But of course they don't have silencers and only NC would benefit from underboss. Other factions have a little bit faster and better weapons in the first place. Another interesting choice would be Hunter, aka crossbow with recon darts, so you can use both recon tools. Further on, secondary slot will be pretty important for you if you choose to go Stalker, which of course I will explain a little bit later. So as you can already see, your base build will be simple and most pieces won't really change no matter which playstyle you're going to go with. But what determines your playstyle in close and mid ranges will be your primary weapon, of course. So here I have compiled a list of weapons that will be used in close to mid-range, usually up to 150 meters. Note that all weapons in Infiltrator class are exactly the same between factions. In this case, exceptions are mainly SMGs. And Vanu rifles, since they don't have bullet drop, they have some compensative changes. Oh, and speaking of Vanu rifles, the only one that has bullet drop is Ghost. So let's start with CQC Infiltrator. This section I'll divide in two Stalker and non-Stalker parts. So let's start with non-Stalker one. Here you'll be only using automatic weapons, with exception of Terran Empire specific sniper rifle trap. Yes, you can use all other weapons on close range too, but here's the big but. They won't be as efficient as automatics, that I can assure you. At first I compared all 3 weapons that all empires had in common, both SMGs and scout rifles. In general, scout rifles stats already show that they lack damage per second, and as a matter of fact they do have the slowest time to kill for one normal infantry unit. While both NS weapons kill a little bit faster, but not by much. Oh, and I have to mention that both NS weapons are exactly the same. They do have little differences, but they change nothing. So the question is, are Empire specific SMGs better? Well, yes. Time to kill for all of them, including trap, is better than those 3 common ones I mentioned before. For Vanu and NC, those SMGs have exactly the same time to kill, so it doesn't really matter which one you pick. As for TR, Armistice and better yet Trap kills the fastest. I mean, imagine, sniper and able to stand its ground with SMGs. Well, this is why I don't believe the Trap is a sniper. In that category, it's a joke. Nonetheless, DPS. Now probably you have a question, but what about total DPS, which includes all the reloads and blah blah blah. Well, first off, to maximize DPS on all the weapons around, I had to equip SMGs with extended magazines that had those attachments. And at the end, the biggest DPS had Hailstorm, Cyclone and Eridani. Mind you that Cyclone and Eridani without extended magazines would have much lower DPS. But of course not as low as scout rifles anyway. Still, the worst total DPS had Trap, with no surprise of course. Well, after all, it has pretty big reload and the smallest clip, therefore the smallest damage in clip. And still it can dispatch 1 or 2 enemies quite quickly, which makes it pretty good. Keep in mind that these results are just some comparisons that on battlefield are not always the most important. There's also recoil that matters and the distance and how they play together. Now all SMGs and scout rifles have plus minus the same recoil design, except for PDW, Mark V and Cyclone. These weapons have very small sideways recoil, which makes them exceptionally easy to control. Basically, the absence of sideways recoil mean that these weapons are very easy to be used on a little bit further distance than you would normally use SMG. And hey, even sometimes up close this is very helpful. But at the end, of course, you have one question: which SMG should I get? 40R, Hailstorm. Recommended because you have large clip and the same damage model as Armistice, so you can use your forward grip or laser to improve your accuracy, while still retaining almost the same DPS. I don't recommend the Armistice due to the fact it has huge recoil and hitting anything beyond 50 meters is hard. Also, to maximize DPS so it's in the level with Hailstorm, you have to sacrifice your rail attachment for extended mags. So you're either stuck with terrible accuracy or lower DPS. So also Hailstorm has bigger damage in the clip, therefore it can engage more targets. Oh, and as for Trap, yes, it does kill fast and other good qualities it has, but if you're going for pure damage, then rather go with the other two. And the same thing goes for VS. Get serious. Yes, it has lower damage, but it shoots faster, and just like Hailstorm, you can improve either aim or hip accuracy without losing your DPS. Oh, and of course you can engage more enemies, plus the model of the weapon looks better, I think. As for NC, I strongly recommend you to try out Cyclone. It has very small sideways recoil and pretty high damage model. And yes, you will have to equip extended magazines if you want the same DPS as Blitz. But after all, this very small sideways recoil makes this weapon very good, even without any attachments. In case you're wondering about NSSMGs, I highly recommend them to all. As I said, very little sideways recoil and pretty good reload speeds, especially on PDW, can make a difference. Now of course there are some exceptions to few weapons that make them exceptionally great on battlefield. Scout Rifle Artemis, Empire Specific Sniper Trap, and SMG Cyclone and Blitz. All of these weapons are very silent once equipped with silencers, especially Artemis. Honestly, what can be better than no sound while you are killing your enemies? I choose to use Artemis over PDW or Sirius because I just can sit in one corner or bush and carelessly kill my enemies while they can't figure out where the hell I am hiding. I have to say that these 4 weapons, if used with skill, can lead to some fantastic adventures, as they have done it for me in the past. Also here you can see that NC's SMGs are actually pretty good in general, so you guys I guess are the lucky ones. Okay, as a last part, let's take a look at Stalker. First though, I would recommend using something with silencer, as you don't want to be noticed. Either use Empire Specific Pistol or Crossbow. Now as a Stalker you have pretty poor damage dealing capabilities, but that doesn't mean you are worthless. You still have AP mines and a weapon to defend or attack with. And yet keep in mind not to engage more than one enemy at a time, and even then try to do that from behind. And after all, patience rewards. Also try using base turrets to either kill or distract enemies. While all infiltrators should do it, still your task as a Stalker is to hack and capture in the first place, while avoiding conflict as much as possible. So there, I hope I cleared a few things about automatic weapons and stalking. Now let's take a look on mid-range weapons, aka leftovers. I'm saying that because these weapons are best used in very small distance interval. But if you try to go up close, or Vanu forbid try to snipe with them, you're gonna have bad time. I'm not saying it's not possible, I'm saying that it will be inefficient in comparison. So anyways, you have to choose 1 out of 5 weapons to use, but which one is the best and for what? First off, TR, Vanu, Default and NC 100 Cert Ghost SPR sniper rifles are pretty useless to begin with. Their high-powered scope suggests that these weapons are meant for longer ranges. But since you need 3 to 4 body shots or 2 headshots to kill a guy, it tells something very different. I mean, come on, have you ever tried to hit a guy in the head after landing 1 headshot already? Usually that guy starts spazzing out like an epileptic at rave party, and landing another shot or 2 becomes impossible. So only good range in which you can kill a guy fast enough is about 0 to 130 meters. If he is further away, obviously it will become harder and harder. So for these rifles, the smaller scope is, the better. Which means that you have to stick to your 6x scope. Also, it's possible to go point blank with these rifles, and actually that's how I got my Auroximon Spectre. But still, they are so inefficient compared to other 4 that it's not even worth touching them. And speaking of having smaller scopes on these rifles, there are actually copies of these weapons, so you can maybe choose those. Phantom, Impetus and KSR. Gotta remind you, since Vanu rifles have no bullet drop, they have a little faster muzzle velocity, but damage drop off is bigger in distance, which means that killing an enemy after 100-meter mark with Phantom and Spectre won't be possible anymore, while other faction rifles will still be able to kill at any range. And yet no bullet drop policy for all Vanu weaponry makes the biggest impact for semi-automatics, which means that they are the easiest to use between all 3 factions. Nonetheless, Phantom, Impetus and KSR are cheap and pretty good as long as you use them from distance, because their slow fire rate makes them inferior up close. And moving on to last semi-automatic rifles, the Scout rifles, Snake, Shadow and HSR. Oh, and a copy called Vandal, which has larger clip, better hip accuracy but longer reload and slower muzzle velocity. And to balance out no bullet drop for Vanu rifle, it has slower muzzle velocity, while damage remains the same, unlike Phantom. Now as TR, of course you can choose to use Empire specific sniper rifle trap. It is versatile after all, you can use semi-automatic mode and just start shooting, but the thing is, it's more suited for close range combat. So in this list I'm not including it. But so the question still stands, which is best for you? Well, all in all they are pretty much the same. Up close they will kill with 3 shots, no matter which one you use, except for trap of course. While scout rifles will possess a little bit faster fire rate, but sniper rifle category semi-automatics will possess more damage. But anyway, semi-automatic mode means that you will have to pull trigger every time you want to shoot. So if you can't click as fast as others, then probably these weapons are not for you. But back to the facts, scout rifles will kill enemies with 4 shots if enemy stands more than 15 meters away from you, which means that extra fire rate might actually be somewhat delusional. After all semi-automatics in sniper category will kill with 3 shots. But all in all I have to say that scout rifles are a little bit more versatile because they can have 6x scope equipped on them. And of course Vanu scout rifle is just as silent as Artemis is. And at the end, since they are pretty much all the same, the cheapest one would be the best one. Well, maybe except for NC's case, in which second cheapest would be the best. Because Gauss SPR, as I said before, with its high-powered scope is not as useful. But wait, what about bolt-action rifles? Well, first off, they are great at one-hit killing or shot-knifing people. But the problem is that these rifles require more skill to be as effective as other weapons. So obviously I'm not gonna recommend this weapon for people that are just new to the game. or people that don't like bolt action mechanism or don't like high powered weapons in the first place. I mean, with these rifles you will have to learn how to aim for the head or perhaps to quick scope from time to time. But sure, of course you can use it from distance just like snipers, but you know, without the big scope. But honestly, these rifles are a pain to use. So the thing is, most people will struggle with this weapon, while with any SMG they would be very successful. Basically, this weapon is just as effective in close range as it is in distance if you know how to aim. And yet, if you choose to use this rifle, then I strongly recommend using silencer and 4x scope with chevrons, so you can make more accurate mid-range shots. And of course I have to mention that these rifles are exact copies of each other between all three factions. So there, I hope I cleared a few things about these weapons. As the next thing, I want to share a few things about close quarters infiltrating. Number 1. Never forget your knife. It's quick and easy to use. As I said, with bolt action rifles and crossbows you can make a quick kill by first shooting a guy and then knifing him right after. And that should result in a kill. But in general, knifing somebody will save you few shots from your weapon, whether that is secondary or primary. As a Stalker, knife will be your secondary weapon, which you should use as often as possible. After all, your main weapon does not deal much damage per second in the first place. Number 2. Don't be afraid to switch to your secondary. It's faster than reloading. Yes, we all have heard this line before, but it's true and it's very helpful. Number 3. There's no need to rush. Now, oftentimes in Planetside, enemy simply looks at one point where enemies are coming from, while disregarding their surroundings. This gives you an opportunity to sit down and camp for a moment. I have made some good kill streaks in big battles because I had found a perfect hiding place and enemies just kept ignoring my presence. As an added bonus, you don't even need to be cloaked or hiding. All you need is to have some sort of cover behind you that blocks enemies' vision. And you can sit there while lots of enemies run past you. Oh, and since you will be sitting still, you will have the best accuracy for your weapon. So there, relax and find yourself a safe spot. Number 4. Be like a snake. Basically, with this I want to say that once enemy spots you, you have two options: fight or flee. In most cases it will have to be flee option. Now, when it comes to fleeing, the faster it is, the better. But enemies still can hit you, so running in zigzags is very important. Possibility that you will survive becomes much greater if you keep weaving a lot. And also, as long as you stay cloaked and keep moving, enemy will have very hard time at spotting you. So don't be so stiff and be more like Snake. Number 5. Do not stop. Weaving is very important, and so is running, no matter what. Let's say it's a biolab fight and a lot of enemies are camping landing pad entrance, and it seems like there is no way inside, but actually there is. Just cloak yourself and start running towards the easiest and most crowded spot there is. Don't stop, no matter how good some kill opportunities may look. Just keep moving, weaving straight forward. You might get shot, but as long as you are in cloak and there are a lot of enemies around you, they will prevent anyone of opening fire on you. Even if somebody does, the rest of his friends will work as your meat shield. And even if somebody tries to follow you, as long as you keep weaving and running forward, he will stay behind, checking every corner you might be sitting in. Of course, I'm not guaranteeing that this will work all the time, but you know, when it does, it will be fun times for you. And so the last thing in this video I want to mention is Rat ability for Flash. And as you know it, because of this ability, Flash can become invisible if it's driven by infiltrator. Basically, this cloak for the bike works just like Hunter cloak, except for each update you also increase the time you can spend in the cloak. Also, if you stay still, you will become completely invisible, or at least as close as it gets. Another thing about this cloak is it does not mask any sound. Of course, it makes sound once it cloaks and uncloaks and so on and so forth, but once you're driving past some enemy or whatever, he will hear you. With this bike and ability, you can make some interesting maneuvers and kill streaks, as you can of course add a weapon to this bike. I recommend Fury. As for very interesting tactic, you can use your bike with the combination of your friend's C4 and you can become a stealthy bomb on wheels. And of course with this you can easily destroy any Sunderer. But in general, Raid bike can serve as very safe transport. So all in all, that's it. Of course, practice makes perfect, and don't expect to be great immediately. Still, if you have any questions, comments or ideas, you can share them down below in the comment section. Also, this video is a part of my Infiltrator Guide series, so if you want to check out other parts, feel free to visit my channel.